Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro and CEO of I-Prevail supplements. Today's guest is Jason Arntz. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Quinn. Happy to be here.
For sure, Jason. So I like to start each podcast off with a couple of questions, the same questions I ask all of my guests. The first one is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
So starting off, early in my teen years, I always looked, it was a little bit after the Arnold era, but who didn't look up to Arnold in those days? Big role model for the sport. But from the competitive edge, the competitive side of it, I was a big Lee Labrada fan. I liked the guys that had, I'm only a little over 5'5" tall, so I had a liking to the more, the shorter, more aesthetic guys. Well, yeah, like a Lee Labrada that transitioned to a Sean Ray, and then you had some of the mass monsters that just made such an impact on the sport, which turned into, a big admiration for Dorian Yates, even though I knew that wasn't my physique, but I liked the work ethic and the hard blood and guts type style of training that he put into play and really set a trend for people in that time.
Excellent. So at what age did you start lifting weights, Jason? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
So I started young. I was an athlete. I was a gymnast when I was younger. Got into wrestling, wrestled about 7 years, played football for about 11 years, all through Pop Warner in high school. I started working out for sports, but then I got into, you read the magazines and you kind of like the look of bodybuilding. And, I transitioned into the sport of bodybuilding in high school, finished out football and made a career decision to pursue the sport of bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding. But I'd say probably at the age of 15 years old, started working with some weights and then it evolved from there.
Excellent. So talk to me a little bit, Jason, about your childhood, your upbringing. You mentioned sports. Just talk about that a little bit up to about high school, and then we'll kind of transition from there.
I blue collar family, hardworking family. We have a detached, relationship now, but not an easy childhood. Went on my own when I was young. Went out on my own, and kind of had to disconnect from some things growing up. And I wouldn't say I really had any type of support, for anything I wanted to pursue. So everything I did, I kind of had to do on my own. Financially, emotionally, mentally. And you build your own circles, you build your own friends, and you build your own family. So it was interesting. It was an interesting childhood, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot what not to do. But I wanted to get on my own and do it my own way, which is, what kind of transitioned me into life. And now I have my own family, my own kids, and I'm doing it the right way. I'm doing it a good way.
So it sounds like the family environment maybe was a little crazy or whatever growing up, but in the midst of that, did you have any coaches, or did you have any teachers, or did you have any adults in your life that did kind of influence you in a positive manner when you were younger?
Right. So great point. So I didn't have any role models at home, abusive family. So I went to Diamond Gym, which is I'm from New Jersey, based out of New Jersey. I met John Kemper, who became like a surrogate father to me, helped coach me through the early parts of my career, got me involved with the NPC, competing that way. But John, played a vital role, in my life at that time, where you don't get support at home. So when you look for it and it's there, you kind of take what you can get, and John saw something in me and, made an investment in me, and I'm grateful for that. But that's really what helped, construct the future of of me for competitive bodybuilding. So yeah, John Kemper was a huge role model for me. And I didn't really work with a lot of trainers. I kind of self-taught, I self-learned everything. Being on your own, you have, responsibility to yourself. And I like to know the ins and outs of everything I did, what I was putting in my body, nutrition, diet, training. You see some patterns with what other people do, and you take that and you tweak it and make it work for you. But that's how I got into formulations of products, and even on the the anabolic side of bodybuilding. I used at one time, I could probably tell you the pathology report of anything I put in my body. And that in turn went as far as nutrition and training. Also, I learned the aspect and the basic fundamentals and how to tweak, movements to, perfect my physique to the way I wanted it to look. But yeah, those were my role models, people from Diamond Gym, and there were some trainers there that we worked together with and learned from each other. But it was a great place to be at that time in the history of the sport.
I love that. It's pretty cool. Even sometimes when we do, have kind of a tumultuous upbringing, it's pretty cool to see how life kind of brings different people in and out of our lives to kind of help us at different points. So that's a pretty cool story about John. So talk to me, Jason, then once you kind of finish up with high school, you were kind of already into bodybuilding. Was that your main focus after high school, or did you go off to college? Did you want to kind of pursue something else? Talk to me a little bit about what you wanted to do, quote unquote, when you grew up, if it wasn't bodybuilding.
But so I was touring, so I did love playing football, but I had no support, and I had, it was hard to develop in a team sport for me because of what I went through growing up. So an individual sport made more sense. So I stayed local because I was committed to Diamond Gym, and I knew if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, this is where I needed to be. So I went to 2 years of a community college. I studied psychology and took some law enforcement stuff, which, I went a different route. But after 2 years of community college, I realized, I'm going to put everything into bodybuilding, and I'm going to more to learn as a trade, where I knew this is what I want to do with my life. And I will find a way to earn a living through this, if not from competing, but having longevity in the sport as a promoter and now a sports supplement owner.
So talk to me when you first kind of initially got exposed to bodybuilding and decided hey, this is what I want to do with my life. What is it, Jason, that really pulled you into bodybuilding and kept you there and said, hey, this is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do with my life. What was that one or two things that really kept you in bodybuilding?
Well, at a young age, when I was a gymnast, I'll never forget, my gymnastics coach took me aside and he said, do me a favor, put your arms like this and stand like this. And I had no idea what he was doing. And he said to me, I think this was in the 3rd or 4th grade. He's like, you have the genetic structure to be a great bodybuilder one day. That always stuck with me, and going to the hardcore gyms and seeing that, I was driven. I had that drive, and I loved the lifestyle, and the hard work and the training. That was just even more. And coming from what I came from, I had training angry, and beating yourself up, which bodybuilding, is a masochistic type of sport. That was easy for me. The regimen. My father, they were a military family, so I was a very regimented type of person. So, the training, waking up early, sticking to a diet, sticking to your routine, that was second nature. That's the easy part, But I guess seeing myself develop, and then having the support, that I never had before from people that knew. It's not like, hey, yeah, you're going to be a great singer one day. You say to your kids, I don't say that to my kids. They're not going to be a great singer. But, having support from people in the know and professional judges and people in the NPC, higher ranking people in NPC that thought I had a future, that kept me going. Doing the work was easy, but knowing that this could pay off, this could in turn, help win me a national show or get a pro card or compete or to be, representing the IFBB as a pro athlete, and have some sort of platform and be relevant as an athlete, drove me. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Excellent. So talk to me, once you started competing, why don't you just share a little bit about your first show and then just kind of unpack your competition history for us, Jason, please.
So I actually got on stage when I was 16 years old. There was two little AAU shows. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trained. This is before I went to Diamond Gym. It was through the AAU, and I won both of them. It was a teenage, I believe, the Colonial America and some other teenage New Jersey show that I won at 16 years old. From there, I went over to Diamond Gym, and I was committed, after high school, finishing up my football in high school, and set my goal on the teenage Mr. New Jersey. So I trained for that. There was a warm-up show a couple weeks before, which I competed in the novice division, took third in the men's novice as a teenager. And back then, like, these shows were stacked. I mean, these they were stacked. And I did well there, then went on and won my weight class at the teenage Mr. New Jersey. Then I went on to win the teenage the teenage Musclemania in Philadelphia. And then I just started training for the men's open and trying to, make a statement at the Mr. New Jersey, which at that time was the biggest show in New Jersey, probably the biggest show in the East Coast area at that time. And took third or fourth in my first men's open show. Then I went on to the East Coast, won the East Coast, and moved up to a junior national show the next year, and then did well. Junior USAs, I took third, went to the junior nationals the next year, took second, and I went on to the nationals the same year and took fourth my first time at the nationals.
So talk to me a little bit about then, once you started getting into that national level competition, what was the feedback? I mean, was there a lot of positive feedback from judges and from people in your inner circle? Because you kind of said at some point that kind of like fueled your fire, so to speak. So talk about competing in your first nationals, and then how did you kind of go back, make those adjustments to come back and step on a national stage again?
So I remember the Junior USA, my first junior national level show. I took third there. I met Jim Mannion at the show, which I was, meeting Jim Mannion. You're like, wow, And he said, "Hey, I heard a lot about you. John Kemper told me a lot about you. Can't wait to see you on stage." And making a great statement, placing third in my first junior national show was huge for me. But I actually got a lot of publicity out of it. I was probably at that time one of the most photographed amateur athletes in the area. So they would fly me out to California for photo shoots. That's how it was done, back in the 90s. From there, I started preparing for the junior nationals and got more notoriety. And, I was the East Coast guy, and I had a couple covers to some magazines and a lot of articles and training articles. So I knew, I got something going here, and it felt right. And my training, there was progression at every show. I was consecutively getting better and better with each showing. But after the junior nationals, I felt as if I made a really good show, and I wanted to see how I would fare out in a national show. Excuse me. So that year, my first nationals, I was like, "Hey, look, you're hoping just to make the top 15. These shows were huge. You only give out one pro card per weight class at the nationals. All the other national qualifiers, you have to win the overall. So it was tough back then. But my first national show, I got the first call out and placed fourth with a very tough lineup. Like, these guys were veterans at the nationals. Any one of them could have had the pro card at any given time. So that just kind of set my goals for, all right, now I'm going to take the year and train for the nationals again next year. I'm automatically requalified. And I thought, hey, if I don't do well, I have time to make improvements. I'm young. And I think I was only 23 or 24 years old in my first nationals. The following year at the nationals, I dropped to sixth place. It was me and Dexter Jackson, sixth and seventh place. So you could tell how crazy the lineup must have been. That kind of fueled me. And I went on to the USA the following year and won the light heavyweight class. Lost the overall by 1 point. went on to the nationals, light heavyweight class again, took third that year. That fueled me. That's when they introduced the super heavyweight class in 1998. I was always sucking down to make light heavyweight. And I felt as if, these 3 or 4 extra pounds make a huge difference on my frame. So I decided I'm going to go heavyweight, or, I'm not going to be concerned about it. I'm just going to go in whatever I weigh. So I ended up being a heavyweight. I was one of the lighter heavyweights, but I won the USA that year also, the heavyweight class. Lost the overall to Dennis James, and, rightfully so. But I think it was only by 2 points, though. And then I went on that year and won the nationals. I won the heavyweight class at the nationals and the overall. There was 180 guys competing. It was one of the biggest shows in national history for bodybuilders. So it gave me a good resume going into my pro years. But it was all open. There was no 212. There was no 202 at that time. So I'm competing against guys. And at that time, it was the Ronnie Coleman era. So you have Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Chris Comer, Sean Ray, Kevin LeBron, Paul Dillette, Porter Cottrell, all these guys, these big name, top level athletes, Nasser El Somebody, guys that were really worthy of Olympia status. But I did well in my first couple of years as a pro, and held my own, and was thankful when they introduced the 202 pound class in 2008.
So I want to talk about you competing in the pros here in a minute, but before we do, talk to me about the first time that you had the opportunity to go out to California to kind of experience that experience, because especially back in the 90s, early 2000s, that was the Mecca. That was like everybody's dream, right, in terms of competitive bodybuilding. So talk about that first experience for us, please, Jason.
So it was surreal. I'm here I am, this East Coast guy from Jersey who's never been out to California before. And I'm getting all this recognition, and I'm more of a, I could mingle with anybody, but I know I don't show it, but I'm more of an introvert. I'm the last one to get to a party, and I'm the first one to leave. I'm not huge about social gatherings. I go and I have fun, and I can make people laugh, and but then I want to leave. I'm more just goal oriented. Like, I got to train in the morning. I got shit to do, so it's that's what's always on my mind is, it's hard for me to really live in the moment when I guess maybe it's a curse of what I went through growing up. Nothing was ever good enough. So I just always have that mentality. But now here I am in California and getting this recognition and doing photo shoots. And, we all have these insecurities. I'm thinking, I don't look good. Why do I deserve this? And oh God, I'm standing with guys in the gym that have done these photo shoots that I've read about in magazines for years, and now I'm doing it. It almost didn't seem real, but you have to kind of kick yourself in the ass. Say, hey, look, I'm here. I'm going to make the best of this. But training at Gold's Gym and seeing these guys, training around Flex Wheeler and Chris Comer and Rico at the time, and Dennis Newman was a huge inspiration for me also as an amateur. It was just that was the lifestyle. It's really watered down now. Everybody's on social media, so you don't get that up close and personal experience, that we used to get, in those days where you kind of yearn for it and you look forward to your photo shoots after the show. But I was like, all right, 1 or 2 weeks out there, I do my photo shoots, I'm done. I want to go and hibernate, back in New Jersey and get my training in and improve on what I feel like I need to do for the show. But, you were done with it at that time. It's not like it is nowadays where it's just constant year round, where nobody craves it anymore because it's so much in their face. Where back then you couldn't wait for next month's magazine to come out just to see who's on it or to see what you can learn from reading in it. Now it's, everything is readily available. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly changed, the way the sport is.
Did you have an opportunity at some point to meet Joe Weider? And if so, tell us about that first meeting with him.
So I met Joe Weider. It was at the 2011 Mr. Olympia backstage. It was the first time and only time I was ever able to meet him. He was backstage. I got a picture with him, but that was, that was something, shook his hand, got a photo with him, and thanked him for everything he had done for the sport and to bring it into the light, which it is today. But that was definitely a moment.
That's pretty cool. So, talk about your pro debut. From my understanding, your pro debut was the Toronto Pro, and you got top 5 in that, correct, Jason?
I was 4th in that show, and that was getting that first call out. That just sets the tone. You know, Milo. I mean, the names. You saw the list. You know, that show was stacked, and I made a great showing for myself. You know, I was happy with what I did. I would have loved to place 3rd, because back then top 3 was an Olympia qualification. But for me to qualify for the Olympia, you know, being one of the smaller, lighter guys, I knew was going to be tough. That's why I was grateful when they started the 202-pound class. But you know, being on the stage with those guys and feeling like, hey, I belong. You know, look at who they didn't call out. These are guys that have been in the Olympia. You know, so it really set the pace, and you know, put a stake in all right, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna follow through, and I'm gonna take this as far as I can take it.
So talk to me a little bit then about you competed in the open in the beginning of your career because the 202, the 212 didn't exist. But talk to me about when they did implement the 202, and how did that improve your career, or what are your thoughts on some of those lighter weight divisions that the IFBB eventually implemented?
So I'll never forget, I get a phone call from Steve Weinberger back in, I believe it was 2007. And I think they did a trial run with a show with, they made it 210. And they didn't talk about it. It was the first time. They just ran it through to try. And I think Silvio Samuels won that, I believe. But apparently it was a big success. They got great feedback from it. And, you know, at that time I was trying to get bigger to compete with these guys. And I get a phone call from Steve Weinberg, and I used to go out and train, you know, at that time. It's still now, he's got the best gym in the area. So you'd love to get out there at least once a week and you know, get a good session in. And he pulls me in the office. He said, how would you, we're thinking about doing a 202-pound division. Do you think you can make weight? I was like, holy shit, if you make, I will make weight. Don't you worry. I'll make weight. So they wanted to make sure, I guess, they could get some guys that could help, you know, catapult this division. But I think it was a great decision. You know, boxing, MMA, there's God knows how many different weight classes. You know, even at the national level, you have 7 different weight classes, and only 2 of them are above 200 pounds. So you're alienating, you know, 75%, you know, of the population by not having these smaller weight classes. So I think they should even do 2. I think they should have like a 185 and bring it back to like 205. I think 212 is a little too much, you know, because they are primarily the shorter guys, and that extra weight makes them look a little, you know, stocky or dumpy looking, you know. When they implemented 212, for me, that was when I knew it's time for me to get out, because, you know, I just spent years not trying to gain any more weight, to sucking down to stay in shape for the 202-pound division. I don't want to tax my body anymore. I was already almost 40. You know, I just had my second daughter, and that's when I knew it was time to retire. And it was the same guys, you know, same placings, just 10 pounds heavier, you know. But I think having the lighter class brought back more of the classic look, which I think why the classic division is doing great right now too. But I think bodybuilding deserves at least 2 or 3 weight classes.
So I just want to ask you a couple more things about competing and being a pro, and then we'll kind of get into the supplement talk. Is that cool with you, Jason?
Of course.
So cool. I want to ask you, so kind of in lieu of you know, John Kemper, how he kind of was an influence for you when you were younger. Once you kind of became a pro, was there another pro or somebody kind of in that IFBB that kind of took you underneath their wing, or was somebody that really helped or influenced you?
No, I'd always done it on my own. You know, I was that kind of guy. I know I'd worked with Chad Nichols once for one competition, and with him, you know, he looked at what I was doing, and he's like, dude, you know, how am I going to fix this? You get in great shape. You know, everything you're taking is on point. he kind of laid, gave me like a second eye, which is what I relied on. It was through pictures and video and stuff like that. But I did it all on my own. I know one Olympia, I worked with Dorian Yates, which was actually good for me because I learned a different style. And I learned to carb up properly for my body. I was always afraid to carb up, properly or enough. I thought I would spill over. But it was more just one-on-one for those shows. But everything else I kind of learned on my own and went my own way.
Makes sense.
I mean, at this point, I thought, look, this is my body. Who's going to know better than me? If I eat something, but I used to do testing on myself with low body fat percentages. So I knew if I extended a certain amount of carbohydrates a day, I'd retain a little bit of water. I knew what supplements, if I took, they were going to make me retain water or not, just based upon, I had a constant control, my base level, so any type of minute fluctuation I could see. And that's where I learned. That's where I learned in those times when you're in contest condition. Those are the best times to really learn how your body responds to things. And, having somebody tell me what to do or not putting a mindful thought process into it didn't make sense to me. I wanted to learn these things. So I was more that way.
Makes a lot of sense. So just a couple fun questions for you here. In terms of competing, who's the freakiest bodybuilder that you stood on stage with?
Stood on stage with. Well, I did the Arnold Classic one year, took 7th, and Ronnie Coleman won it. So, you don't get freakier than that. But I'll never forget, the freakiest bodybuilder, not on stage, and I ever saw in person before that time. Being from Diamond Gym, we used to run 2 NPC competitions, and John Kemper would fly in, the guest posers, and Dorian Yates comes in one year. And he'd never been to I don't think he'd ever been to the East Coast yet, or at least he'd never been to Diamond Gym before. So he walks in, he's wearing this sweatshirt with the neck cut off. And I'm looking at him, and it was just crazy. His traps were sticking out from the back. And he was in good shape. He was in good off-season shape. But I'd never seen a man up close that big and that, shocking to see. Like, you see him in pictures. I saw him compete on stage, but when he's right there in your gym training, like, holy shit, that is some raw muscle. Like, it was very, very impressive to see in person.
I love that. That's cool. Who do you consider to be the best New Jersey East Coast? We can even include the entire East Coast bodybuilder of all time.
Me, of course. It's got to be me. Who else?
Perfect.
No, East Coast. Well, there's an argument for a lot of people. There's an argument for Rich Gaspari, is setting the trend. There's an argument for Victor Martinez winning the Arnold, taking second in the Olympia. There's been some great East Coast bodybuilders, through the past couple decades. It's kind of hard to single one out. Sean Clarita for winning the 212 Mr. Olympia and placing second this year. I mean, these are the new guys now that are setting a different tone. Nick Walker, he's an East Coast guy. Shit, look at him. But these are probably the names that will stand the test of time.
For sure. So on that note, just kind of keeping your eye on the current crop of IFBB pros, are there a few guys that you just are like, man, these guys are kind of like, next level and really impress you as athletes?
Yeah, so I'm a Hunter Labrada fan, and maybe that stems from me, looking up to his father when I was younger. But I think Hunter exemplifies, that good classic look while having a lot of muscle on him. I think he really needs to tighten up just a little bit more, and you see a guy like Nick Walker who dials it in every time with that conditioning, so I think Nick and Lee and Hunter Labrada are going to be the future of the sport in the next coming years. And I know it's something certainly the fans want to see, those two guys, because they're both good, hardcore, dedicated guys, and I think both of them have tremendous futures.
So I want to finish up our time, Jason, just chatting about IPrevail supplements and how you kind of got into the supplement industry. The first question, where did the name IPrevail come from?
So interestingly enough, I saw a picture. It was a girl running on the beach, and this was at the time I was trying to come up with names. I had a list of things that I liked that were dear to me. That I was kind of leaning in these directions. And this girl was wearing a shirt that said "Prevail" on it, and I just thought of everything I've gone through. I felt as if I was always an underdog. I always had an uphill battle. We all have that sad story. But I've overcome a lot. And I've prevailed through some compromising situations and some troublesome times and legal issues, a divorce, a bankruptcy, family issues, abuse, violent abuse. And I overcame all that, and I was able to, put myself in a position in life where I'm able to start my own business and to have a family and have two daughters and have a great relationship with my wife. And I just felt as if that shirt made sense to me, and I thought it would make sense to a lot of other people who have similar stories. We all have these stories. So I put IPrevail on it. So whoever wears that shirt, whoever buys that product, it's something they feel as if they can identify with also. The struggle, the uphill battle, the constant grind, and without having any handouts. Kind of put it in concrete that was the name I was going with.
I love that. That's great. So talk to me a little bit, Jason, then about why you decided to get into the supplement industry, and then just talk a little bit about in more detail some of the supplements that you offer through IPrevail.
So I was an athlete for a lot of different companies, through my career as an athlete. And at one time I was offered, I guess, I would speak to athletes signing on. I would speak to customers, people walking up to the booth at these expos, at these shows. And one of these directors of sales of this company I was an athlete for, came to me and said, "Hey, listen, we still want you to be an athlete, but would you be interested in a sales job?" And it never really dawned on me, to work sales. At the time I was doing mortgages, my wife was pregnant with our first daughter, and I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'll get health insurance. All this makes sense. Sooner or later, we all got to grow up, Excuse me. So I took the job in sales, and I was their top salesman for 3 years up in my area. And then a bunch of us left that place and started a different company where I worked at for 7 years, and I ran the highest profitable region in the company for pretty much all 7 years I was there. But I helped with formulations, and I gave my opinion, direction on what I thought products should do, and based upon what I used and what I've done my whole career. And then I got tired of just doing it for other people. I was waiting for a good time, and I didn't like the direction the company was going in that I was working for. So we parted ways, and got the LLC pretty much the next day, and started working on some formulas, which I had already been working on for the day I did this, but tweaked them a little bit with some, updated, ingredient components and some ingredient panels that I thought would be ideal, not just for bodybuilders, like, for anybody who's looking to, you can have an amino acid product, and yeah, they're aminos, but if you could specifically engineer the amino acid chain where you're getting a better source of that protein, a better source of that aminos, it's going to apply in the end, and the end result is going to be the user is going to feel a difference in recovery. And that's what I do. So I put together, I think it was 4 products when I first launched the company 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And I had relationships up in my area in the Northeast with a lot of the stores, and I was able to get support from them to help, get the products in, and it's been growing ever since.
So what is kind of the full lineup of supplements or products that you offer, Jason?
So I have my high stim pre-workout. I was always a guy that liked to take some stimulants before they train, just because I trained at a higher level. So having a little extra caffeine and some other types of PEA stimulants, I thought benefited me. So I have my Rogue, my high stim pre-workout, really good for focus. You're not going to feel like your heart's going to explode or jump out of your chest. There's no crash from it, but it puts you in that zone where you could train and be focused and have stability through your whole workout. That's my high stim pre-workout. I have a nitrous oxide pump pre-workout with no stimulants in it, but I have 1,000 milligrams of lion's mane, which is a very potent nootropic. Increases mental activity, intelligence, helps create that mind-muscle connection. But the pump ingredients I put together in a nice synergistic blend that work well together in delivering better pathways of blood flow that get to the muscle cells and help the muscle cells contract better. So you get a great pump from using that. I have my amino acid product, Amino Impact, which I just discussed with you, which high dose of leucine, almost 5 grams just of leucine. I reconstructed the essential amino acid chain, all your electrolytes for hydration, plus glutamine for digestion and absorbing. And it is a good muscle building amino acid. It does very well for me. I have an intra workout, which I swear by. This is the first product I formulated. This is something I've used my whole career. I was always big on intra workout formulas. They didn't make them at that time, so I had to create my own. I would get a carb source, which at the time was Gatorade. I'll buy some essential and branched chain amino acids, some glutamine, mix them all together, and I would drink it during my workout. Well, as the evolution and science got better, in the sport of bodybuilding and supplements, carb sources changed. It went from, a waxy maltodextrin to waxy maize to a cyclic dextrin, which is what, a lot of people use now. I use an ingredient called Carb 10. It's a pea starch carbohydrate. It's very light. Molecular body weight is very light, so it goes through your digestive tract very easily. You don't get an insulin spike. And most importantly, you don't get a hydrochloric acid release. When hydrochloric acid is released during training, it destroys the nutrient values, not only of the carbs, but of all the aminos you're taking in also. So I have a GDA in there also, which shuttles the carbs and the aminos into your cells, but it's a solid intra-workout. It's probably one of the most crucial times when your body is craving nutrients. You're tearing your cells down in the gym. They need to repair. They don't wait till you get home and eat a meal to repair. They want to repair right away. So it's ideal for athletes, better than drinking Gatorade or anything, getting carb source. It's glycogen and sugar. It's pure glycogen, which is sugar-free. I have a sleep formula that helps your body release growth hormone, raise your IGF levels, but some really good anti-anxiety components in there, puts you at ease. You drift off into a nice deep REM sleep and you wake up, no grogginess. You feel refreshed, you feel recovered, and you're ready to go and take on the day. I have a natural test booster, increase your natural testosterone levels, suppresses estrogen, increases your libido. I have, what else do I have? I have my fat burners. I have my T2 products. I have a non-stimulant fat burner, one with a mild amount of caffeine and reogenesis, and I have one that makes you sweat. So for people who like to do heavy cardio or lose some water weight, but it's got my T2 components also, which enhance your metabolism. But they're all doing well. It's a solid line. Each product is better than the next. So depending on what your goals are, you'll benefit from any of them.
So talk to me, Jason, here about how you stay relevant, because you mentioned social media, right? And social media has changed just about every form of business on the planet, right? So how do you stay relevant, and how do you continue to progress within the supplement industry in the midst of social media and all the change within the avenues of business that are out there?
So social media I utilize. Unfortunately for me, social media wasn't big, and because I'm more of a to myself kind of guy, even when social media first started taking off, I didn't indulge in it. I wasn't that guy that wanted to put my picture out there all the time. Now I have to for the business and the company. And unfortunately, I'm doing it late in the game, but my social media is growing. You know, I'm constantly getting new followers and you know, a better interaction with people. But I utilize that with my accounts that sell my products, help boost their business, help get support from retailers, and that'll continue to grow. But it is relevant, it is important. But you know, I'm a Generation X guy, so learning this has been you know, like trying to hit a curveball for me. But I'm getting it. You know, I'm catching on.
Do you really focus on boots on the ground and connecting with brick and mortar supplement businesses, or is more of your business online?
So 90% of my business is brick and mortar. I don't push online sales, and because I come from a specialty side, blue collar side, small business side, I try to pick up the small businesses, the brick and mortar stores. So I support them in a sense where you could buy off my website, but I'm higher priced going to a store. So I don't try to compete with these guys that are competing with Amazon. You know, that was a big fallout in the industry when I was learning, you know, sales for the other companies I worked with. Is the store owners would always complain, "Oh, I'm getting killed by Amazon." And these are stores that supported me in my whole career that I used to do events at, you know, that would sponsor me for events and so forth. Um, so to give back to them and help small business is huge for me. That's why I don't push online sales. I do have my online following, and you know, I generates maybe 10% of my monthly income. But I'm more, you know, I run this business by myself. So if I can utilize a brick and mortar store and get support from them by offering them great products, good pricing, good margins where they could make money on. It's all, if it is online, it's mapped. So they don't have to compete with anybody. And then in turn, they give me the support of pushing my products, you know, where I don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing or worry about the social media. So it's worked out for me, you know, thus far, you know, so, you know, hopefully it continues.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap it up here in a few more minutes here, Jason. I want to touch on a couple more things and then we'll close it out. What's the correlation between bodybuilding and business from your experience within bodybuilding, your experience within business? What is that correlation? What is that connection?
So that's a great question because early on in my career, I just treated bodybuilding as I did any of the other competitions. I've been competing in something my whole life, you know. So to me, I wanted to train, you know, compete, get better, and do it again. Go home, train, and repeat, and do it over and over. So I would fly out to California. That was like, all right, let me get this out of the way so I can get back home and get back to work. So I never really treated it as a business. I treated it as an athlete competing. But then towards the end of my career, I'm like, you know, if I'm going to have a future or be relevant in the sport, you know, when my competitive side is gone, I have to start treating this as a business. And it's my fault I didn't do it earlier on and get involved with the social media and build my platform that way. Like I said, I'm doing it a little late in the game. But you have to treat it as a business. You know, anything you involve yourself in, if you want longevity, and if you're looking to make a career out of this, it's got to be a business. And, you know, Sean Ray, I remember looking up to him, you know, early on in my career because, you know, I heard mixed things about Sean. Um, he was this, he was that, but Sean was always good to me, and I consider him a friend, you know, and I always had a good relationship with Sean, and plus, you know, he was one of my favorites growing up. But Sean treated it like a business, and some people thought he was an asshole for doing that, but you know, too bad because you know you get walked on a lot in this industry, and it was good for. And I saw him do that, and it kind of put me in a different mind mode where this is what I got to do. I got to start treating this as a business, and that's how I got involved with the sports supplement side because I had the science background from doing this stuff, and also being a promoter. I promote an NPC competition, the Muscle Beach in New Jersey once a year, treating it like a business that way, where I'm still relevant and I could give back to the athletes. So that's my that's my way.
So talk to me. One of the last things here I want to talk to you about is the competition promotion. So when did you start that, and what does that mean to you to be able to give back to the athletes in the bodybuilding community like that, Jason?
So I started this back in '97, back when I was still an amateur. I ran the Muscle Beach in '97, '98, '99. then I went through a divorce and I stopped doing it for years and had to get my act together and had some other issues and had to clean up some mess that I created. But I started doing it again in, I believe it was 2000. What was it? Bear with me. I think it was 2010. Might have been, or not, 2009. I think it was 2009. I got the Muscle Beach back, and I've been running it ever since. I haven't had it the past 2 years because of COVID, but it'll be July 30th this year in New Jersey, in Tinton Falls, Muscle Beach. But for me, the whole day of the show, I'm backstage with the athletes, because I know what it's like to compete and to need something, or I want to make sure they have everything they need. They're taken care of. Their prep is done. They got their tan on. They're in line. They're not going to miss their call outs. They're ready. They have everything. And it keeps me still, involved in the sport. And I kind of like seeing the younger Nick Walker won my show. Shanique Grant won my show. Like some of the best athletes that are relevant today, won my Muscle Beach in their amateur careers. So there's been a bunch of pros that have done my show. So to be a part of that and be a part of their history, it's just, it's nice to see, nice to be a part of. But it's something I enjoy doing, and I like seeing raw talent. When you see raw talent, and then you see what they do with it down the line, it's just it's admirable.
When everything is said and done for Jason Arntz, what do you want to be remembered for, or what do you want your legacy to be?
Hopefully a successful business that I could pass on to my kids, and not just grow with sports supplements, but grow in the industry and be a part of, any future athletes, journey. But I want to see my two daughters superstar athletes. I want to see them excel in what they do. I give them all the support they need. I make sure they're two little beasts. So I wish I had, what they have, growing up. That's what makes me proud, and that's what I do this for. But to remember to be a relevant athlete and somebody who gave back and who does things the right way, isn't looking to make a quick dollar, and like you asked, how am I running this? I'm doing it slow. I'm learning. We all make mistakes along the way. I'm in no rush to be a multi-million-dollar company. Of course, who doesn't want to do that? But I'm okay. I'm okay where I'm at, and growing at the rate I'm at is a good pace, managing my inventory. But in terms of the future, remember, as a good husband, good provider, and hopefully a good role model to my kids.
Very honorable. All right. So last question I have for you, Jason. For some of the young listeners out there, maybe they're thinking about getting into bodybuilding, or they just started competing, or they're just kind of starting on that bodybuilding journey. What are some words of wisdom or words of advice you'd like to share with them?
Look, work ethic. There is no easy path. This is, you want to put on muscle. It's a long-term journey. It's a marathon. Don't get involved in taking heavy drugs and ruining yourself. And obviously there's a place for everything. But you can't be in a rush. I see a lot of kids now, they haven't even competed at a regional level, and they're talking about earning their pro cards, where, like I was talking about, I was just happy to get a call out, like things have changed, but I think they need to slow it down, learn their bodies, learn what works for them. Don't rush things. Putting on muscle takes time. Putting on quality muscle takes even longer time. And go through your prep. Don't worry about your cheat meals, and don't worry about your refeeds or whatever else everybody's worried about nowadays. But you gotta be willing to put the work in 100% with everything, with your training, with your diet, with your cardio, with your rest. It requires a full commitment to the sport, to the process. You got to commit to the process. And if you're willing to do that, and you have the genetic capacity to do so, you will do well, and you will lead the way for other people behind you. But it all takes, it all stems from work ethic.
Great words, Jason. So I want to thank you so much, Jason, for taking some time out of your busy schedule to just share your story with myself and the listeners. Before I close it out, if you do have any final words or thoughts you want to share, go ahead and share. And then also, where can people find IPrevail supplements, and where can people connect with you on social media?
So social media, it's I_Prevail Sups. There is a link to the website, which is I-PrevailSups.com. They could check out all the products there. They could DM me or they could find me on Jason Arntz, which is my normal Instagram. They could DM me there with any questions. I get back to everybody. I talk to all my followers. I try to engage with everybody that buys my products. Anybody has questions or any misunderstanding about anything or want to learn more, I'm always there to answer questions. But yeah, those are the best place to find me.
All right. Awesome. And it's kind of cool. I've posted it a couple of times on my Instagram stories, but you and I actually got to meet at the 2008 Mr. Olympia. Yeah. Got a picture with you. Like I said, I've posted on my Instagram story. So for me, it's pretty cool to be able to, all these years later, have a conversation with you through the podcast medium. So thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. Okay.
Quinn, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Listeners, those of you who are tuning in, watching through YouTube, I just want to say thank you again to you. If it wasn't for you, the podcast wouldn't exist. Just a few things as we close things out. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button on YouTube. And then if you would just leave a comment in the comment section on YouTube, your favorite part of Jason's story or something that you found of value from what Jason shared with all of us today. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.